Welcome to If the Public Only Knew, the show that pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to build and lead a business. Host Gary Cinderbrandt sits down with some of today's most dynamic CEOs, founders, and leaders to dig into their origin stories, hard-earned lessons, and the missteps that nearly derailed it all. These are unfiltered, no-hype conversations designed to inspire, challenge, and fuel your own journey. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
Welcome back to If the Public Only Knew. Your host, Gary Cinderbrandt. Today we have someone that started kind of on the opposite side of the table where I spent my career in wealth management. Steve Preda started in investment banking and worked through a variety of different financial jobs, ultimately ending up in a leadership coaching position. And for those of you that have listened to the show before, you know how fascinated I am in the human journey and how we move from one thing to another, hopefully finding the thing, that destiny where we all belong. Steve, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Gary. It's great to be here.
So, Steve, I'm fascinated. You started in finance. You worked in accounting. You worked in investment banking, doing a variety of different transactions. Walk me through what and where and what took you from investment banking to start to consider developing yourself as an executive leadership coach. I'm fascinated by that evolution.
Yeah, so how I actually got into investment banking, it was kind of a winding journey, but emotionally, since I was a teenager or even before that, I had this inclination. I was living in Hungary, behind the Iron Curtain, and we all desired to travel. That was a big driver for young people. Often people went into sports for the hope of being able to travel to international tournaments. And I always wanted to travel and see the world and to be moving around. That was kind of my emotional desire. And I had the chance when I was in college to go to different countries to study, and eventually I applied for a job with the KPMG, and I got it in London. So I was in London for 3 years, and then I didn't want to stay in accounting. I wanted to get to something more exciting, which investment bank appeared to me at that. So I went into investment banking, and eventually I moved back to Hungary, and I was working for a big bank, which went through a difficult summer, and they looked at the payroll, and they started cutting the most expensive people, and I was one of those. So I went into started my own business, which I also had a desire to do back from my teenage years. I had a great grandfather that I never met in person, but I heard a lot of stories how successful he was. He was an orphan, but he built a business, a bakery business, which became one of the top 30 taxpayers in Budapest in the pre-war or in between the two world wars. And I always admired him for building this successful business from nothing. So I went out on my own. So as soon as I got laid off, which was a Friday, Monday I hung the shingle for my own investment banking firm, and then I grew this firm over a period of 10 years. And during that time, I got really interested in about the science of building a business. And I was following different thought leaders at the time. I was ordering CDs from America. People like Dan Kennedy was one of them, and Jay Abraham, and others. And then I discovered Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, which was really first fascinated me. That Michael Gerber talks about working on your business and how to look at your company as a machine and how you construct this machine so that it can be grown and scalable. So I got really fascinated by this thing, and I implemented whatever I could from his books, not just the original E-Myth book, but the other books that he had. And then I stumbled upon Traction and then Jim Collins stuff. So I experimented with implementing those stuff. And while I was growing my investment banking business, And then in 2008, we went through a really difficult time with my business. We almost went out of business. I had to downsize, and it was extremely painful time. And then just as we recovered in 2011, there was a big currency crisis in Europe. So that was another hit just as we were looking to have another great year. It got stopped short because of the currency crisis. And then we had changing government that started becoming more insular, and our business was very internationally facing. So it was that at that point where I was looking, okay, what can we do? We went to Bucharest for a couple of years to open a boutique firm, but it was a very similar situation to Hungary, so we couldn't really make a big splash there. And I thought maybe we can go to somewhere further away where there's more potential. So came to America in 2012 and opened a branch for my business. And within a year, I sold my business back in Hungary, which I kept running with a talented team. I sold it to a private equity group that wanted to get into my business. And then eventually I closed my investment banking business here in the US because it was just looked too risky, and it was very competitive, hyper competitive. I thought of Virginia as being a kind of a Hungary-sized entity where I could do some of the same things that made me successful in Hungary. Well, none of those things worked in marketing, and I didn't have any connections. So eventually I closed down my business and I became a Vistage franchisee. And I thought, okay, maybe if I partner up with a big company that like Vistage, they will teach me how to sell in the US, how to market myself, how to build peer groups, so I build a network. So that was my vision, and it actually did help. So I launched a couple of those groups, and then I started building a network here in Richmond where we moved to. But eventually I realized that the Vistage work didn't satisfy me as much as building my own business did. Because what I did was I was coaching these CEOs. We were, solving their challenges, their issues in the group, coming up with ideas, but they very rarely implemented any of those ideas.
Right.
And I thought, if I really want them to implement the idea, I have to be more involved with their business, and I have to have some opportunity to actually help them with their teams so that they can offload some of that stuff and have their teams do it. So I started implementing EOS, and then along the way, I realized that the EOS journey was fairly limited. Most companies graduated. That was part of the concept that you graduate your clients, and I just didn't get that. I don't understand how does it help the client when they have a good thing going to somehow graduate and then start to do it themselves and then atrophy in most cases. How does it work for the guide, the implementer who gets to know the company and gets to understand the industry, and just as they have some knowledge that they could leverage, then they are out. So it felt very disjointed. So I thought about what if there was a way to extend that journey, both for the client and for the implementer, and keep on growing these companies and take them to a higher level. So when EOS turned into a franchise, there was a time for me to leave, and I just published my first book, Buyable, and then I wrote a couple other books and started building my own system. And it's called Summit OS, and it is how it's different from most other, if not all other operating systems. It's customizable to each company, and it's also scalable. So we can work with companies, we can learn what they do, what they need, and then we take them on their own journey. We have a bunch of tools, a big, deep toolbox that we can curate these concepts. It includes execution strategy, team building, empowering people, and then we can help these companies through, for many years, not just 18 months or 2 years, but 3, 5, 7, 10 years and beyond. And then actually help them with the growing complexity as they grow the business. It is actually very exciting for the guide to help them with a more complex business and to solve more complex problems. It's a intellectually much more stimulating journey, and the longer you work with the client, the more interesting it becomes. So that's was my vision, and that's what I've been working on, and I'm very blessed because I have close to a dozen guides who are now partnering with me on this journey, and we are our mission is to eradicate what we call business COVID, this pandemic that kills over 180,000 businesses each year, who run out of cash, who get disrupted, who get commoditized, who are not able to attract and keep great people, and who are not able to transition the business to the next level of management or the next ownership. So we call that business COVID, and we are eradicating business COVID one company at a time.
It's fascinating. There's so much to unpack there. Um, your progression seemed to be one of aspiration and, oh, I don't want to say complacency, but always knowing when you got to that next level, there was a lot more to do. There was a lot more to go. There was more to learn, and a journey that is really continuous. It kind of mirrors, I think, what it seems you're doing now. That when you get into a position such as a couple of jobs back where you felt that you worked with the CEO and everybody agreed things were going to be great, but you didn't have a continued involvement, therefore there was no accountability. So what seemed like a great and valuable idea at the time is just going to kind of, as you say, have atrophy over time. And it almost mirrors what your career progression was.
Mhm.
That it seems now with Summit OS, as you're designing individual outcomes, and I've looked at some of your guides, there doesn't seem to be an end point where someone's going to say, "Well, we've done all we can do, and you have it from here." Um, the end of the journey is the end of the journey when somebody decides it's the end of the journey. And I think that's one of the things that's most stimulating about the human condition. Most people don't recognize or realize what they're truly capable of because they don't consider it to be important. They're distracted, they've got day-to-day things to do, and you may have these great goals when you start, but it's so easy to get distracted. At what point, Steve, if you know, did you realize this was ultimately going to end up with something that was going to be more of a free-flowing design, which really breaks the executive consulting model? Because most executive consulting models are very, you know, they're baked in. You start here, you're here, you're here. Thank you very much. And we move on. The classic consulting model. At what point did you realize that you wanted to do something that would engage this approach almost in perpetuity?
Um, yeah, this is a great question. So I didn't set out to do the perpetuity thing. I just wanted to create the next level. So my desire was when I started doing EOS, I thought, okay, why does it stop? Well, there's got to be a next level. What is the 2.0 version of EOS? And that's what I was thinking about, to just get to the 2.0. But then, as we, as I started working on these next level things, then I realized that there's no 2.0. It's either it's limited or it's open ended. It's like one of your investment funds. It's either you have a closed end or an open ended fund. Maybe it's the analogy is not completely correct,
I understand.
but you know, because I thought that for most of the guides, what they are really passionate about is not going after new customers and signing them up. What they are passionate about is growing the companies.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't they be able to do this 80, 90% of their time as opposed to 20% of the time or 30% of the time? Um, and I thought that for the clients, it would be much more beneficial because if you have a guide who is spending a lot of time running after other clients and they have to juggle 30 different clients at the time to make sure that they have some level of stability in their business, how much energy are they going to have to really understand your business and to really put themselves in your shoes and really think about, okay, what is the problem that you're facing and how am I going to help you? So that I wanted to flip this. So I wanted to flip it from a sales-oriented franchisee to being more of a consulting and coaching-oriented licensee who can keep clients for a very long time. And ultimately, every client goes away because they transition or they sell the business, or the characters change and they want something fresh, which is normal. But that was kind of the idea, and also I think it was fueled by my curiosity. So I really like the challenge of, okay, there's a new problem that this client is facing, and we don't have a tool for that yet. So how are we going to solve it, and what can I do to help them see this thing from a different light and help them frame the concept and have a good brainstorming and then come up with their own solutions to take the business further.
So, how many guides do you have working with you now in your business?
So we are 10 guys right now.
Okay. And when you have a prospective client come in, how do you match up that prospective client with the appropriate guide?
So, all our guides are experienced business people. So typically CEOs of other companies, often serial CEOs or former business owners or C-level executives of a substantive business. So we all come from different industries, whether it's healthcare or construction or professional services or distribution. So we have different backgrounds, and the system works for any type of client. But if you can bring in your industry expertise and your personal experience that relates to that client's business, then it's another layer of resonance that you can create, and it helps you help the business with more relevant experience and examples. So that's
So
basically how we do it.
is there an assessment that goes through when you're bringing on onboarding a new client? Do they go through a process where you're doing an assessment and figuring out what the needs are, what the objectives might be? Is there a timeline of things you want to accomplish? And talk to me about follow-up and accountability. I know when you're in this world and someone's handing you a check, they want to get some value out of the check, which is, part and parcel of the follow-up. How do you do the initial assessment and the goal setting with clients that know that they can do better, but just have no idea what to do first?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we start with every client, we start with a 45-day execution momentum. So I strongly believe that the biggest lever to pull for 99% of the clients is to make sure that they execute all the basic management best practices at a high level. And nearly no clients that I have come across or prospects have it down at the level that they could have. And this is the easiest lever to pull. So we start the journey with a 45-day execution momentum. Of course, we explore where the client is, and there is kind of a mental roadmap in my head or one of my guides head when we talk to the client. So we see what the biggest gaps are. Nevertheless, we start with the execution momentum because it will give them all the basics of making sure that they articulate their culture, that they build a coaching environment, a mentoring environment, that they have a strategic plan, that they have quarterly objectives, they have KPIs, meeting structure. So the basic stuff, we give them the basic stuff in the first 45 days. We make sure they implement it. We coach them, we give them software. We are very hands-on. And during that 45-day period, we are building the roadmap. So what's going to be the next mountain for them when they got the execution momentum? Is it going to be systemizing the business is the lowest hanging fruit for us? Or is it leadership development? Or is it strategy that they need to work on, differentiation of the business? Or is it the profitability lever that we have to work on first? So that's when we kind of start to build the roadmap, and then we take it one quarter at a time, and we go from one mountain to the next, and figure out. And this is one of the most important job of a Summit OS guide, is to listen and to understand what the client wants and what they need. And
How how active are the guides as far as communicating to the client throughout the course of the engagement? Are they on kind of on demand, or are there preset calls and preset mileposts that you look to achieve? How does that work between the guide and the company itself?
so the 45-day execution momentum, we have a playbook for it, which is a 32-step playbook. And it starts with what we call the expedition meeting, when we engage the team and we create buy-in. And then we go to the base camp when we do the basic strategic planning and execution training work with them. And in between, we do coaching for the leadership team. We join their meetings and make sure that they are running the meetings right. We give them software. So we have the first 45 days is a highly scripted process. And from then on, we monitor the client that they are maximizing on the tools that they learned. So we get weekly reports from their software. So we see what they're doing in their meetings, what they're doing on their core objectives, KPIs, the topics that they are discussing. So we are monitoring it, and we reach out to them, make sure that they are maximizing on it. We are also available for any of the leadership team members to call us and book meetings if they are stuck with anything, if they have information that they need, or if they need help with rolling something out to the rest of the team. Then we are available. We also give them video audits of their meetings, give them feedback, sometimes join their meetings. So it's up to the guide to make sure that they are executing and maximizing. And then we stay in touch with the CEO and often other leadership team members to make sure that we are seeing what's coming and what they need. And we bring them the right tools at the right time so that they can keep elevating every quarter.
So there's a great deal of work that's done up front. And then it seems like once you get them on the path, you just kind of make sure they're staying on track with an ongoing engagement. And that it seems as if your clients are always, they're not looking to get to a point where they're static. They're always looking at that next mountain per se and moving forward.
Yeah, so the ideal client is a person that is growth oriented. And our job is to keep them engaged and excited about the future.
What do you
So
notice to be the common problems in something like that? That somebody's gung-ho when they start, they're really excited about the whole thing.
mm,
And then the day-to-day practicality of running the business in 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, and you've got the economy to deal with, and you've got earnings to deal with. Do you notice any common themes where people can start to get pulled back to their old ways that you help them guard against?
yeah. Um, I think client selection is super important, um, because not everybody can be helped. So some people cannot get out of their own way. They some of them have either they have this desire to be involved in everything, and this is stronger than the desire to grow the business.
Mm.
Some people have an emotional bond to um, their team and not able to make any changes, and they rather want to be the person who is loved than the person who is admired. Um, and I think these are the biggest ones. So I think client selection, if we make sure that we choose a client that genuinely wants to grow and they want a growth business, not a lifestyle business, that basically takes care of 90% of the problems. And then there's team dynamics going on. So some teams you have a bad apple that kind of sabotages the team. So we have to make sure that that person gets into the right seat, or is finds a seat outside the organization. We have to show it to the rest of the team that they have to make a decision. Mm, I mean, these are really the major issues that I see. Can we help in every case? I mean, sometimes we are not able to help. Sometimes there's such a major industry disruption that we cannot help fast enough to pivot, or maybe we don't have enough support from leadership to the pivot because it seems too risky. But that is very rare. Um, so most of the time, if they execute well, if they communicate well, if they are working on their strategy, if they are working on their sales process, if they're working on their marketing approach, and keep tweaking it, then you can and you have you're maintaining your financial solvency of the business, and make sure that you're not reckless with your finances. Then in most cases, people can pivot and can find a way um, to escape the disruption.
Do you find any one industry to be more favorably inclined to this type of work than any others?
I think that the more curious the leadership, the better they're gonna fare. So I find that curiosity is the biggest ingredient. Where do you find this curiosity more? I think you tend to find it more with businesses that are more um, sophisticated in how they work. So I love to work with professional service businesses, with tech-enabled businesses, because those businesses they have people who are curious, who are pushing the envelope, who are want to be ahead of innovation. So that definitely correlates well. But you sometimes get innovative people in businesses that you may not expect them to be. So in some construction business, you have very innovative people. In some manufacturing business, you have super innovative people. In distribution, sometimes you have people that innovate ways of communicating and marketing themselves. So it's hard to pin it to industry. It's more about the curiosity of the CEO primarily, and the rest of the team is
It's
what counts.
fascinating. I mean, because you're building up a knowledge base with every engagement you have, where pieces of that knowledge base could cross over into the next client, possibly in a completely different industry.
Hmm.
So you're accumulating not just your own personal experience and your experience with your guides, but at the same time, people that are hiring you have reached some modicum of success already. And I think that probably no two clients you have followed the exact same pathway to success. And it seems like there would just be a plethora of ideas to play with. It's a really interesting model. Are you enjoying what you're doing?
I absolutely love it. I have to keep it a secret from my wife because she thinks that I'm just having a hobby here, not serious about it.
I completely get it. I thought it's like, you don't need to work. Why are you working?
Yeah.
As in wealth management, one of the things I always would talk about with my clients who had a hard time setting, let's say, articulating specific financial goals. I just want to make money, or I just want this. Well, how about we start with when you get out of bed at some point, you go to work because you want to, instead of going to work because you have to. And people look at that and go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So that's something we can think about. Sometimes it's just getting people to attach to the right thing. But, I have people ask me frequently if they're headed for the right career, what should we do here? And, when you're young, you're thinking about you want to get yourself financially stable as quickly as possible. But I think you realized pretty early on that it wasn't just about that. It was about making a difference in what you did and having a feeling of satisfaction that you were leaving things better than you found them and that you enjoyed doing it. And I feel badly sometimes for people that won't take that chance. They won't take the risks that you took,
Hmm.
that many people take, that you don't necessarily have to know where it's going to come out. As long as you have that objective to know there's something else out there. Our brains are funny things. They'll work on those ideas sometimes when you're asleep. You'll wake up and go, oh, I should just go do that. That feels right. So it's great that you found your path. And I'm sure you're bringing great value to the people that are working with you.
I think it's very difficult to do great things if you don't enjoy it.
True.
I can't imagine how someone can sustain the intensity of the work without getting an emotional mm, high out of it. It's going to be a very grinding and draining thing. And
I completely agree. I deal with it with the people I consult with all the time. The best, most successful wealth managers, many of whom I trained when they were younger, have a passion for making other people's lives better. They've got
mm,
all the money they're ever going to spend. They don't need to work, but they really love being in the mix and being able to enable other people to
mhm,
overcome their own fears, to overcome their own, let's say, self-sabotaging rationality,
mm,
which I see a lot when I still consult with advisors. It's just that question of, look, it's your decision. You can be mediocre. You can sit around and wonder what the hell just happened. Or you can be one of those people that other people look at and say, how do you make that happen? How did that occur? It was just like me, but all of a sudden he made something happen. Where
mhm,
most people are content to sit back and kind of live these lives of quiet desperation. It's good to meet someone that really understands what the true human potential is. I think in your pursuit continues to rise. Steve, tell me about how people can find you, the type of client you're looking for. How do they get in touch?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn. That's my major social media, Steve Preda. And they can find Summit OS, summitos.co. I've written some books, so there's an Amazon page for me there as well. And as I said, I love businesses with smart CEOs and ambitious CEOs. I work a lot with professional service firms like consulting companies, digital marketing, accounting, law firms, tech-enabled businesses, whether it's distribution or SaaS businesses. I love those kind of businesses because it's exciting. And, I often go into a 8-hour session and I have more energy when I come out at the end than when I go in because I got so pumped up, inspired by some of
Yeah,
my clients. It's a great feeling.
I
So that's what keeps me going.
I completely agree and I totally understand. Steve, thank you so much for joining me today. I think you and I could talk for hours. I think we see the world in a very similar way. It's wonderful to really hear your enthusiasm and really know the difference you're making on behalf of other people whose lives are going to be improved as a result of being able to find their way to you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Gary. It was a great conversation, and I hope we keep going with it.
Well, I'm gonna connect with you on LinkedIn very shortly. Thanks again.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Steve Preda from If the Public Only Knew. His company is Summit OS. You can check him out on LinkedIn. You can check him out on Amazon. I am certainly going to dig in a little bit more to some of the books you mentioned and probably read one or two of yours as well. Steve, thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to If the Public Only Knew. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with anyone who's ready for the real raw stories behind the business successes. Join Gary next time for another powerful conversation that will leave you inspired and ready to take action.